Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing great today. Turning up my volume here so I can hear myself. All right. So we're going to do the August book wrap up. I'm back at it, you guys. You might have watched my book wrap up where I went over what I read since the last book review. I realized I finally went through all of the videos that I did not upload, and there's a few that I'm going to upload that you'll get a chance to see. So I do book reviews of particular individual books. And so if you're interested in that, that will be uploaded if it isn't already. I have a few books that I just did individual ones on. But today, I did do a book review on one of these books. I may do another one on one of these books, but I think I probably can fit it into this book wrap up here. So I completed in the month of August quite a few books, not a whole lot, but enough for me to have a little review here. So we'll start off with an audiobook that I have listened to, and that is Left Behind by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. So I have watched the movie, the Left Behind movie series, um, years ago, and I've actually recently watched it again. And so I was interested about actually reading it. I've watched fellow booktubers and they talked about the books and they said that they're great stories. And so I was like, okay, let me go ahead and try it. And it is actually very captivating. Like they grab your attention and it's very fast paced. Like I finished that book in one day. Um and so it was I gave it 5 stars. How biblically accurate it is, I would say it's probably not like the most accurate in my perspective of the end times. However, it's very entertaining and I think it does grab people's attention and it can help people get interested in the gospel message and all that. So I still gave it 5 stars, even though it's probably not like the most biblically accurate Christian fiction. Um and with that, so I listened to that and then I immediately the next day I listened to the Tribulation Force. And there's actually a movie, if you didn't know, Left Behind, there's more than one movie. And so they have this in the movie, Tribulation Force. And I will say though, I think towards the end of Tribulation Force, there's things in the book that's not in the movie. And I think the movie I think they might have known they weren't gonna have like every single book into a movie, and so um, I will say that like if you are interested in like what really happened, you probably want to do the actual book as opposed to the movie because the movie doesn't have everything in there. Um, but I gave this one also 5 stars because again, it's very fast paced. It kept my interest. And I was able to finish it. I think this one I did it in 2 days as opposed to one day, but probably could have listened to it all in one day. Um, and so that was a great book. I am definitely going to go through all the books in the series unless I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. But from everyone else that's done the Left Behind series, they all seem to speak highly of it. So I think I will enjoy it. So there's that. And then, I always have to do a children's type of reading for just like my, relaxing, don't use my brain too much. And so I finished another Ramona book, Ramona and Her Mother. Um, let's see, what did I give this one a rating? So this is similar to like all her other Ramona books. She's definitely getting older. Um, there are some issues that are a little bit more serious, as she gets older. Um, I know, like in the last book, Ramona and Her Father, which I've read, he lost his job, and now he is working at a job that he's not very happy with. Um, and Ramona, I feel like I can relate to Ramona, especially in this particular book. In other books too of her, she has stated in several of her books where um like her family members would say things of her, like they would call her a pest, or oh, remember when Ramona used to do this, and it would be something that's annoying. um and it would hurt her feelings. She'll be like, not like that, or they always say something about me. I kind of felt like that as a kid. Like, there's a lot of similarities to how Ramona was, and the way that I was as a kid. So I think that's why I liked it so much. I don't think I was as annoying as she was. I don't think I did as crazy stuff that she did. Um, but to relate to her, which I think that's why I like reading her books. So that this one I actually gave it 4 stars as opposed to 5, just because it wasn't as humorous and as entertaining as some of her other Ramona books, but it was still pretty good. All right, the next book that I read is the Enneagram Empowerment. I actually got this book from my older sister. If you're not familiar with it, it's a personality test. And the book itself, it gives you some tips for your different personality types, and whatnot. And so the Enneagram, let's see if I have a picture of it in here. Well, these are the different personality types here. So the personality types that they have is the visionary, the connector, the luminary, the artist, the philosopher, advocate, the explorer, the warrior, and the diplomat. And with each one, ah, well, I know there's another one. I'll give her the picture of the Enneagram. Well, each one is a number. They give it a number, and with each number, there's a corresponding stress type and a security type. Um, so these numbers means like it's another personality type that you have similarity to, and you may exhibit these traits when you're stressed out, or when you're seeking security. And then they also speak of wings. So the Enneagram looks something like this. It's kind of like a star, but it's not like completed at the bottom. So, like this is the first one, the visionary. And so they'll say like, okay, if you score high on the visionary, you may also have some traits from your wings. So the wings are the numbers right next to. So for visionary, you might have 9 or 2. And let's see, going back to the numbers, 9 is the diplomat and 2 is the connector. So you might have some of their personality traits as well. And then also the stress type and security type, which is connected. So the security type is 7, and the stress type is 4. So they're all connected to that point. Um, I'll be honest, like this book, so they have a test in here. I did the test. I score high on 3 of them. Like they were really close. I was high on the artist, the warrior, and the explorer. And when I read the traits of them, I felt like I had all of them as traits. Because they were saying, well, you might score high, but when you read through it, you might notice that you're really one type than the other. I felt like I was definitely all of these. And then, like I said, like you're related to the wings, like you might have similarities to the wings, and then also your security and stress type. So since three of these different ones I scored really high on, I pretty much had traits of almost every single one of these, um, which made me pretty biased about this book. And then I started doing some research on it, like they didn't actually do any research studies on the Enneagram. So it's not necessarily backed by science. Um, I don't personally think that it's the best personality test. And maybe it's just because of me. Maybe because my scores, I was like, well, I am an artist. Every time I take a personality test, they say I'm an artist. But then it also said like I was a warrior. And so some traits of a warrior is confident, strong, assertive, and I am that. Like people tell me all the time that I'm very assertive. I definitely have confidence. And then explorer is optimistic, enthusiastic, resilient. I'm that too. Like I try to think positive about things. Obviously, I'm resilient because I've been in grad school for 6 years and I didn't quit. I feel like I'm enthusiastic. And these are just the things that are listed on this page, but the actual like when you go to the pages, they have more information. So like I'm definitely these. Like like I definitely would say so. And so I was kind of skeptical of this. There are some things, some good points in here. They give you some advice on how to deal with. So we all have weaknesses. With whatever personality type you have some weaknesses. So they give you some strategies on how to handle, your weaknesses, certain situations you may face, and you know. So I probably will hold on to this book for a little bit just to review those things and just work on myself. But I don't think this is the greatest personality test. Just because, like I said, I feel like I had traits from all of them. And I mean, I don't know. If you ever took the Enneagram personality test, let me know. Like, was your results similar to mine? Like, did you have like multiple? I know I'm weird personality wise because normally when I do personality tests, I always have a weird combination. I know that. Like I'm very much aware of that. Like there's oh I forgot the name of it, but they have like the choleric, the sanguine, the oh I forgot the name. But anyways, with that particular personality test, you're supposed to be similar, like diagonal from each other. But mine is like across, as opposed to diagonal, like, or it's like separate from what they said. So I have a weird combo when it comes to personalities. I already know that. So that's why I would like to know from you guys, is it just me? Is it just because I'm weird? I mean, I know I'm weird, or is it really like not a good test? So because of that, I only gave that book, actually I gave it 3 stars because it did have some good tips in there. The next book that I finished, but where are you really from? I actually have a separate booktube on this book, where I go through the different topics in this book and I give my take on it. So this book is written by Shakira Stern. I hope I pronounced that right. She is mixed with Black and Austrian, I believe. Forgive me if I got your race incorrect. And so she talks about her experience being mixed and the things that she had to listen to and had to experience growing. Her experience is very different from mine. There are some similarities, but there's definitely some differences. And so in my other YouTube video, if you're interested, I do talk a lot about my personal experience. I do talk a lot about race in there. So it is a kind of touchy subject. I will put it out there right now. I do talk about some of the things I've experienced. And I do point out things among the different races, and I point out things that I've had experience from friends and family. So it might be a touchy topic for some audiences. You may not like what I say, if I'm honest. But it is exactly what I've experienced, and it is, I mean, it's what I've experienced, like I said. So you can check that video out if you are interested. This book, it was a short read. Um, like I appreciate the fact that she wrote her experiences, but I will be honest, it's not the greatest quality of work. There's a lot of grammar mistakes in here. um, I think this might have been self-published. Um, but yeah, there's definitely, it's not the best in terms of work quality. Yeah, it's self-published. There's a lot of grammar mistakes and things in here, which um, I probably wouldn't have cared about. But now that I've spent so many years working on my dissertation, like I kind of am kind of a little like, well, just get an editor, use Grammarly. Um, so there is that. If you are someone that's into grammar, you probably would be like, come on, girl, you need to work on your grammar. And she even says that in the beginning that she's not the greatest writer. So, at least she states that in the beginning. But I do think that if you're going to publish work, that you need to get an editor to edit your writing. Um, and maybe she did, and maybe the editor didn't do a good job. I don't know. Uh, but because of that, I only gave it 2 stars. All right, the next book that I finished is the Bible. And so this particular Bible is the NIV Bible, archaeological Bible. Now, when I say I finished the Bible, I did not finish like I put the archaeological Bible, all this extra reading in the archaeological Bible that's not the Bible itself. I didn't read that. I just read the Bible. So um when I say I finished the Bible, I finished just the Bible part of the Bible. So those of you who follow me on like Facebook, and maybe I posted it on here, I don't remember. I had so I read the Bible last year. I tried to read the Bible like pretty consistent, but I challenged myself. So I've read through the Bible a few times now. I don't remember how many times, but the first few times I read through the Bible, I just would read it and I might do a chapter a day or a few chapters. But then I got to a point where I was reading it. I followed the John MacArthur method, which I talked about in my previous video, where I went through the Old Testament, but then I went through the New Testament. I read a certain number of chapters, but I read those same chapters every single day for a month. So that took me about 2 years to get through the whole Bible. And then when I was in the BTCL program, the Bible Leadership Training course, I think I got it right, at Denton Bible Church, they required us to read through the Bible during the time that we were in that class. And so I read it following their plan, and their plan gets you through the Bible in 2 years. So I got through the Bible in 2 years doing that plan. So, and I've read through the Bible before on my own. I have a student Bible that has like ways you check off when you go through. So every time I read through the Bible, it always took me longer than a year. Well, last year I challenged myself and I said, you know what? I'm going to get through the Bible in a year. So I did the 1 year Bible and I got done in a year and I was very proud. Well, while I was working on that, I had went to visit my parents' church, Destiny Church in Killeen, Texas. Not to get confused with Destiny Church, the church that I go to up here in the Metroplex. Um, and I generally go around Mother's Day to spend Mother's Day with my mom, and um, the the pastor's wife, which I still consider her a pastor, Pastor Marla, she normally gives the sermon on Mother's Day. And she stated that it wasn't her sermon, but she mentioned it in her sermon that she read through the Bible in 90 days. And that there's a reading plan to get through the Bible in 90 days. And then she said that after she did that, she still wanted to read the Bible, and then she read the Bible in 30 days. And so that really surprised me. I never really thought that you can get through the Bible so fast. Like I thought just going through the Bible in a year was fast. So 90 days seemed like, wow, that's like really, really fast. And so I was like, well, she did it. So obviously it can be done. And so I found a reading plan on how to get through the Bible. And I used actually my phone, the U version. app on my phone. And so I would listen to it while I was reading through it. So I know some people listen and they don't read, but I was reading it while I was listening. There were a few days here and there where I would just listen to it, but the majority of the time I would have my book or I would read it on the actual screen. Um, and so I went through the Bible in 90 days. And so I just finished that here this week. I'm very proud of myself that I did that. I thought that I wouldn't be able to, and I did do it. I would like to do that 30-day challenge one day. I think I will need more time during the day to do that. And so I will need to wait until I know I have a good, probably 2 hours during the day to get through the Bible in a month. Um, and I don't think I could do that right now. But that's something in the future that I would like to challenge myself to do as well. Since she did it, I think that would be a good thing to do. But anyways, so I did that, and I will say it is completely different going through the Bible fast as opposed to going through it slow because you are able to see things in context a whole lot more. So I do think that there's benefits in going through the Bible fast and going through the Bible slow. And so I want to challenge you, if you are a Bible reader, just give it a try. Like I said, I use my YouVersion app. So by listening to it on the 2X, I got through every reading within 30 minutes or so every day. So, and you get, I believe, 2 days off during the 90 days. And the last day is not even a full amount of chapters because it's literally just the last chapters you have left. I do want to challenge you to try it. It is great. Um, and then the last book, technically, I finished this book today. And I'm probably going to end up talking about it again next month because it's going to show on my Goodreads that I finished it in September 1st. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because it's fresh on my mind. I literally just finished it. And I know that sometimes after a while, when you haven't read a book, you might forget. But it is Under God by DC Talk. Now it says it's by DC Talk and DC Talk, Toby Mac and Michael Tate. I will say that they took excerpts and stuff for this book, so it's not like 100% their writing and whatnot, but they did bring the collection together. They did, you could tell that they wrote some of the stuff in here. Yes, for sure, for sure. This book I've seen, so this book has been around since the 90s. Um, those of you who are young, you might not know who DC Talk is, even if you're in the Christian community, because DC Talk was around when I was a kid. I grew up on DC Talk. They started off as Christian rappers and they switched over to alternative music. And now they still call themselves DC Talk, but they have their own albums. So um, Toby Mac does his own music, and then Michael Tate is with the Newsboys. So, but I grew up with them, and I have they have a book called Jesus Freaks, and that's on my bookshelf. And I've seen this. I was like, oh, they're selling another book, Under God. And I never was into politics and never was into US history. I'm more of a science person. I'm like, I'm not gonna read this book. It's about US government, US history. I don't care about this. Like this is literally like what I was thinking in my head. So that's why I never bought it when I was younger. That's why I never read it. But they ended up having it at the half price books, and I was interested. I was like, you know what? Because now that I'm older, I'm actually starting to get into politics more, and I'm trying to regain that understanding of history that I did not pay attention to when I was younger, when I took my history classes. Um, and so I was like, okay, let me give this book a shot. And I love it. 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 I give it 5 stars, and I not only that, I put it in my favorite book list on my Goodreads, which there's not that many books there. So this book made it to my favorite book reads. This book really changed my perspective of the US. we have all this media coming to us and feeding us all this toxic information about the United States and how divided the United States is and how corrupt the government is and all of this, that, and the other. And you can really grow to hate this country, if you listen to it over and over again. And you would think that this country is just horrible. But reading this book, I've gained a new appreciation for the United States of America. There literally is no country like the USA. Literally. There's no country on the face of the earth. There's countries that are now trying to copy us. They're trying to copy the route that we went. But overall, our foundation, I don't care what anyone says. The foundation of our country is Christian. It is so Christian. And like there's documents in this book that, the founding fathers and different presidents from, the early time period when we were a nation. These guys were like theologians. Like they understood the Bible very, very well. Now I know there's some people that are thinking to themselves that they were racist. They had slaves. They this, that, and the other. I'll let you know. They talk about this in here. Yes, we have people like Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin understood about God very well. And there's several excerpts from Benjamin Franklin in here, along with George Washington and, Thomas Jefferson, John had like a lot of them. Um, and some of them did have slaves. Yes, this is true. They weren't perfect people, just like we're not perfect people. There's things that, as Christians, that we're doing today that is horrible. And like even with those men that I talked about, many of them were finding ways. They were trying to get rid of slavery. It's easy to just say, "Oh, we're just going to do away with slavery." There were some people that did not even want to sign the Constitution because they were concerned about the slaves. But because there was still so much that needed to be worked out, they're like, "Well, we'll work on that. Let's just sign what we have now, and we'll work on that." So that is I don't want people to think that people didn't care. There was still a divided issue even then. There were people who were for slavery and there were people who weren't for slavery. And there were people who weren't for slavery that had slaves, but it wasn't always because they bought the slaves. Like sometimes they were inherited to them, maybe their parents had them. And it's easy to just say, "Oh, you're free." But we have to keep in mind, like even today, like there's black people that are free, but they are poor because they don't have education. They don't have a means to work to get them out of poverty. That's even more so the case back then. Like they had to figure out, okay, how can we help them? Like if we have them free, like we had to find a way. And some of them they couldn't afford to pay them, at least they were feeding them. At least they were trying to take care of them. Now, yes, there were slave holders that were wrong, that were exactly like what we hear in history. There were definitely a bunch of slave masters that mistreated their slaves and, all of that. But I think it's a big disservice to assume that everyone that was a slave master that they wanted to be a slave master. It's a big disservice to say that everyone that was a slave master um, wasn't fighting for the freedom of slaves. Like some of these were actually on in organizations. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I apologize, but there's like for instance, Benjamin Franklin was a part of an organization that was about the abolishment of slavery. Uh, so they were actually trying to find a way. How can we, stop this? Um, so I really gained an appreciation. It also talks about Black history in this book. There's a lot of stories like Rosa Parks is in here. George Washington Carver. I'm gonna read up more on him. Oh my gosh, he was so smart, but he gives all credit to God for all of his inventions and things that he does. I just thought that was I I was like, okay, I need to read up more on him. Like we always think of like the peanut butter, but he's discovered so many things. He invented so many things. Um, there's stories about the Native Americans in here, and I'll be honest, this book talks about the good and the bad. So it talks about the massacres. It talks about how there were even Christians killing off Indians. Like this book goes into detail on all of that, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Like the US history is broad. It's not all glamorous. We know that. But there is no other country on the face of the earth that is founded on the principles of freedom, of your ability to worship God without persecution. There's no other, I mean, now there is, but during the time of its founding, that was the purpose of this country. Like, literally, people left Europe because they were being persecuted for um, having the faith that they had, right? And they came here so they could have freedom of their religion. Like, that's powerful. I'm sorry. It is. And people want to talk bad about America. Uh, Name one country that is as glorious as America in terms of that. Now, I will say yes, now we are starting to see other countries that are definitely, I would say yes. They are just as good, maybe even better, because I will say nowadays a lot of it's sad to say a lot of politicians they're not focused on God anymore. In in the back in the day, the politicians, I mean, they when I say like when I read this, I'm like, man, they were theologians. Like so they weren't watching TV back then. They spent their time reading the Bible. They spent their time talking about God. Like, and you can tell when you read it, like they understood God. Nowadays, the politicians are just like the regular lay people in the United States. People aren't discussing the Bible. They're not in that way of thinking. Nowhere near. It's kind of sad, quite frankly. Um, so I am concerned about this nation going forward, but I'm also hopeful because there are some things that was stated in here, and as we have individuals here in the U.S. praying for our nation, I think that the Lord is going to listen to us and that there is hope for us. So I am not concerned about the future of our nation by any means. I think that there's enough salt on this earth, enough Christians that are being obedient to God, that we will prevail, just like the Christians prevailed in the past. I believe that we will in the future. And this book gave me hope in that. So I'm not concerned about the Marxists and the communists and the people who are anti-religion in this country trying to take over. I am not concerned because I know I have a God who listens, a God that is there for us. And I believe that everything will come to being and that we will be okay. Um, and so that was all. I highly recommend this book. I know it's an old book. You might not be able to find it in a Barnes and Nobles. I got this from the half price bookstore. It's a used book. But I really, really enjoy it. I think it's, for me, it put things in perspective because you get fed so much stuff through media that is so not true. And this just ignited a passion in me to study even more. Um, like it talks about the KKK. It talks about, oh my gosh, there's just so much stuff in here that I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew this. Like we hear these things. It's just like, yeah. And there's resources in the back to do further studies, so there's other books you can read and things like that as well. Um, so yeah. So those are the books that I read in the month of August. I hope you guys enjoyed my booktube here. I know it's not a whole lot, but uh, that's what I read. I'm trying to get back on my reading um, again. And if you have any comments or questions about these books, be sure to leave them down below. Make sure you subscribe. I have a lot of videos coming. I've made a lot of videos, but I never uploaded them, so they're about to come out. And I will see you guys on the next video. You guys take care.